Hey guys, what's up? So this is going to be an updated and finalized version of my all-time favorite movies list, which I have done before. The last time I did it, I split it into three parts, including having some honorable mentions in there. But I got rid of the honorable mentions and just decided to focus on the ones that are actually on my list. So that's what I'm going to do. This will be the very final version of my all-time favorite movies list. And it's not going to be split up into multiple parts, just this one video. And it's going to be from number 20 to number 1. Alright, so let's get started. Coming in the list at number 20 is Dirty Harry. The first of the 5 of them. You know, the original. What I love about this movie is not just the fact that it's a great crime thriller and bit of a mystery, but it's also kind of a socio-political drama because, like, Clint Eastwood's character, Harry Callahan, is sort of, like, restricted by, like, the regulations and laws of the time, you know, when he catches, like, this serial killer, like, he just wants to, you know, put him down just to get rid of him. And, you know, the mayor and, like, the police chief are just like, no, we gotta protect his rights, and, like, that sort of conflict between, like, you know, his duty to the law versus, like, his own morality. Like, what's great about him as a character is that, like, he kind of is a rule breaker and kind of a rebellious cop, and that's why you really root for him, because, like, he doesn't take shit from anybody, even his own police chief and bosses and his partner. You know, like, he just does what he thinks is right. Coming list at number 19 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which in my opinion is the best of all 8 movies because it is such an emotional and dark conclusion, and all the characters that you've essentially grown up with really mature and come into their own by the end, and they're all challenged and tested. And I love how, like, Harry's journey in this movie is, like, the most important because he really has to step up and, like, you know, take ownership of who he is and who he was destined to be. And of course, the final battle between him and Voldemort is amazing and so emotional, as well as the, you know, very final scene when the three of them are, like, seeing their kids off to Hogwarts. It's beautiful, so emotional, and so well built up, and, like, it just ties everything together in such a satisfying and memorable way. Coming in number 18 is one of the most underrated psychological thrillers and dark comedies I've ever seen, American Psycho. And to me, it also has one of Christian Bale's best performances next to Batman. And his character in this movie, Patrick Bateman, he just behaves so unlike you would expect a serial killer to behave. Like, he obviously has two sides of himself. You know, the side that he shows the world where he's this, like, really goofy and kind of, like, slobbish businessman, but his other side is, like, this really calculated serial killer who constantly inner monologues. And that's probably one of the best things about it. His inner monologue and narration is just, like, so entertaining. His inner thoughts, not only when he, like, kills his victims, but, like, afterwards, and also in, like, everyday situations with his, like, fiance and at work. Like, his inner commentary is, like, really, like, thought-provoking, but also kind of amusing, because there are moments where he just acts, like, really goofy, like, even when he's not about to kill somebody, like, or when he is. Like, for example, when he kills Jared Leto's character and puts on Huey Lewis in the News, and he just goes into this monologue about his likes and dislikes about Huey Lewis in the News. It's so weird, and that's what makes it so unique. Like, his character is just, like, so bizarre. Up next is an even better psychological thriller and dark comedy, Fight Club, which is just so intriguing. Like, when you watch it once, you have to see it again right afterwards to really understand it, because, like, it doesn't give you a lot of straightforward answers. It's one of those movies where you really have to piece together what's going on by yourself. And also, similar to, like, Inception or Memento, it's one of those psychological thrillers that's told backwards. And, like, the main character also doesn't even have a name. He's just referred to as the narrator because he narrates the whole thing. And the amazing twist that he is like the alternate personality, or that Brad Pitt's character is his alternate personality that he makes up. It's so fascinating, and I love how the film like drops subtle hints at it. But it's also a really great, similar to Dirty Harry, a really great socio-political commentary about materialism and capitalism and how it's just like all BS and like consumerism as well. How like consumerism really like drives people to do really stupid things. Next is one of three historical dramas in my favorite movies list, and that is The King's Speech. It's such such a powerful and heartbreaking story about a guy struggling with his fear of public speaking and also kind of having to live up to the expectations of being a king. You know, the fact that like the main character, King George VI, played by Colin Firth, the fact that he was the king of England yet struggled with a stutter, that alone makes this movie so fascinating because like he doesn't really think of himself as a king, as a member of royalty. He thinks of himself and just acts like a normal guy who's struggling with this paralyzing fear and has all his life and has been abused and made fun of by his family for it. And how he develops this really strong connection with the speech therapist played by Jeffrey Rush, and how through their friendship they learn a lot from each other, and how he specifically kind of like gets over that fear. And it's a really great tale of friendship and overcoming your fears. Up next is one of my favorite Tim Burton movies, and one that I've loved since I was a little kid, and that is Nightmare Before Christmas. And no, Tim Burton did not direct or write this movie, he just came up with the story. A common misconception. But I love how this movie is essentially basically the story of Grinch, but in reverse. Instead of a guy trying to destroy Christmas and get rid of it, he like grows to love it and kind of wants to make it his own, and that kind of like becomes sort of an obsession for him. And it's such a fun story with so many great like musical numbers, and it's just fun. It really is just fun, and with beautiful stop motion animation. Like I think it took 2 or 3 years to make this movie because of the advanced stop motion techniques, and it shows. It's so good. Up next is one of my favorite action and adventure movies, Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, which in my opinion is the only good movie in the series because it's so fun and adventurous, so fast paced, with a lot of great comedy and adventure, with great costumes and action scenes. It's sort of a revitalization of a genre that was kind of like dying at that point, just the swashbuckling pirate movie. Oh, so fun. And of course, Johnny Depp steals the whole movie as Jack Sparrow. Next is the very first James Bond movie I saw, and my personal favorite out of all of them, Goldfinger. This was really the movie where James Bond kind of took on almost a superhero status in a way, like the big like leading man action hero. And it's also so different than the first two, from Dr. No and From Russia with Love, which were more like kind of like commentaries on like major like issues at the time, like communism and the Cold War. This kind of like bridges away from all of that and really does its own thing. It's more of a straight up adventure spy movie, and like this is the first time we got to see all the crazy gadgets, like the Aston Martin DB5. In my opinion, one of the best and most iconic cars in movie history. And also, you can't go wrong with Sean Connery as James Bond. He will always own this character and will always be the best next to Daniel Craig, in my opinion. Next, one of the greatest musicals and family movies just ever. So whimsical and fun, and also pretty emotional, especially at the end. And also, like with Charlie specifically, how he really wants to win this contest just because, like, he has never had anything to look forward to in life and he comes from a really poor family. But once he wins, like, he's just over the world for it, and, like, how it's clear that Wonka really got rid of all those kids because he saw something special in Charlie and saved him for the end. Um, so fun and memorable and amazingly better than the remake. So much better than the remake. Another one of my favorite swashbuckling and adventure movies, The Princess Bride. A great fairy tale and comedy and family movie that has like all the classic elements of a fairy tale: romance, adventure, action, um, drama, a little bit of comedy in there. It's so fun, so many iconic lines and moments. Inigo Montoya, probably my favorite character. Another fantastic adventure swashbuckling movie, The Mask of Zorro. So fun, so fast paced and intense, and a great revenge story, especially with Anthony Hopkins' character. Um, and also, it's sort of similar to, like, you know, any hero's journey movie when you got this young guy who is trained by this wise old mentor and becomes this great legendary hero. It follows that formula. One of my all time favorite comedies in 80s movies. So funny and so relatable, especially with, like, the kids just getting into like crazy adventures. I wish I was one of these kids, because like this whole adventure trying to find the pirate treasure, it's so freaking fun. So many great comedic moments and all great actors. I mean, you got freaking Josh Brolin when he was a teenager. You got freaking Corey Feldman, Sean Astin, uh, Robert Davi. Oh my god, just like such a great cast and such a freaking fun adventure and also coming of age movie that obviously inspired movies like Super 8 and like Stranger Things too. My favorite Pixar movie ever, and in my opinion, the best of the quadrilogy. Even though I didn't like 4, but it takes the world and the story of the first one and expands on it so much by including so many great new characters. It's a little bit more emotional, especially with Jesse's backstory, which I cry every time that scene happens. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And also, like, even better comedic moments, and it's also just one of those movies where the entire family can enjoy it. It's not an animated movie like today where it's just aimed at kids. Really, the whole family can enjoy it because there's some great subtle adult jokes sprinkled throughout there too. Um, and of course, so many great and memorable characters like Buzz. Buzz is my favorite character in the Toy Story universe and one of my favorite Pixar characters in general. The second historical drama on my list, 13 Days, which is all about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how the Kennedy administration like was really on edge about it, and like how they worked their asses off to try to find a peaceful solution to like ending freaking World War III. Next is one of my favorite Steven Spielberg movies, and in my opinion, the best of the trilogy. No, I don't count Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because it just does not feel like an Indiana Jones movie at all. In my opinion, this was the best of the trilogy because it's so unlike the others, like Raiders and Temple of Doom. It's it has like the least amount of action out of all the movies, and I think that works to the movie's advantage because it doesn't focus on that. It focuses more on the relationship between Indy and his father, and it's sort of like a great buddy comedy, in that sense. I think it's the funniest out of all three because their relationship like creates so many funny moments, how they interact and constantly bicker, and how they're so like kind of estranged from each other and so different. Like as soon as like Indy finds him, he kind of like wraps him into this whole adventure, and like his father's just like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, what are we doing? I've never done this. Like, you call this archaeology? Another one of my all-time favorite Steven Spielberg movies. So intense and so fun and so like edge of your seat exciting. I don't consider it a horror movie, like at all. I don't consider it a horror movie. It's really more of a thriller and a bit of a comedy too, especially with the interaction between the main characters of Quint, Brody, and Hooper. Their interaction is what sells this movie. Their friendship and like how they're all trying to do the same thing, and just like by the end it gets so intense, and how Brody specifically kind of has the biggest role, and he is kind of the main character, and he is kind of struggling with the fact that like the town that he's in charge of, and like especially the mayor, like doesn't believe that there's a shark on the loose, and how like the shark is like a huge problem. So like him and Hooper and Quint kind of have to like go out on their own to take out the shark. And also, can we talk about how amazingly real the shark looks in this movie? My God, does it look real. So much better than any CGI creature I've ever seen. One of the best animatronic puppets I've ever seen in any movie. Another great fantasy, epic, and fairy tale, and such an emotional and action-filled conclusion to an amazing trilogy. So much great acting, great drama, great action, great visual and special effects, costumes, music, everything. And in my opinion, it deserved all the Oscars it got, and it's easily the best of the trilogy because it builds off of the first two and ends it all in such a satisfying and memorable way. Next is a movie that means a lot to me because I know a lot about its subject matter. And in my opinion, it's the only movie about the subject that's historically accurate and factual after researching it for 6 freaking years. Which is funny because for the longest time I avoided watching it because I didn't believe its conclusion. But after researching and then watching it, it is so crazy how much Oliver Stone got right in this movie. Even to like down to the tiniest details and facts. It's crazy. And also, in my opinion, probably the best thing about it is how like it is so brilliantly edited, especially with the opening scene, how Stone combines footage for the reenactment that was done at the assassination site with film footage and photos taken by witnesses on the actual day. So seamless you can't even tell. And also, it's a great thriller and drama with, in my opinion, an Oscar-worthy performance by Kevin Costner. He should have won an Oscar for this, and this should have won Best Picture at the '92 Academy Awards. And also, if it wasn't for this movie, we would not have tons of documents about the assassination available today. If it wasn't for this movie, the Assassination Records Review Board and the JFK Records Act would not exist. So thank you, Oliver Stone, for having the balls to put out this movie despite it being attacked by the mainstream media. Such a great historical drama, and an important one in terms of its subject matter and how it raises so many thought-provoking questions about history and about government. Next is a movie that changed the superhero genre forever, The Dark Knight. I've talked about this movie so much, and rightfully so, because this movie was just a freaking milestone and like slap in the face for like comic book movies and just movies based on fictional characters of the time, because it takes the world and mythology of Batman and sets it in such a realistic and believable world where you feel like it's actually happening. You know, what's great about not just this movie but the trilogy in general, it feels like how the story of Batman would feel if it was in the real world. And it has so much great acting, great action, dialogue that has become so iconic and memorable to this day. And in my opinion, no comic book based movie has ever been able to top it. It's just that memorable and iconic, and also so thought provoking because it addresses so many real world issues, but does it in a way that's entertaining. You know, it combines real world ideas with a fictional universe and characters. That's the highest compliment I can give it. And finally, my all-time favorite movie, the one that I have loved since I was a little kid, and one that I will continue to love, and is part of a series of movies that I will love until the day I die. Star Wars, the original trilogy. And I'm not talking about just Empire Strikes Back, even though it's my favorite out of all 9 and my favorite of the original trilogy. I'm talking about all 3 of the original trilogy movies. The trilogy itself is my all-time favorite movie, and I personally count it as one movie because it's so legendary and so iconic. It's such a relatable story about one young man's journey from nothing to a legend. It's such a great example and rendition of the hero's journey, which obviously was a huge influence, especially on the first movie, on Star Wars, or A New Hope. Joseph Campbell's philosophy, and also so many different myths and adventure serials and foreign films had such a huge influence on not just the trilogy, but like episode 4 specifically as well. So many iconic characters, lines, moments, and is part of a story, of a 9-part story that flows so well. If you watch all 3 of these movies back to back, as well as all 9, one after the other, it feels like just this one giant story that flows so well, and it's all about the successes and failures of this one family, and it's just, it means so much to me and countless others. And I think the reason why it has stuck around this long, and why this trilogy especially is universally loved by fans across the world, is because its themes and its characters are so grounded and relatable. It has so many universal themes that anybody can latch onto and like see a part of themselves in. You know, the themes of love, friendship, loyalty, destiny, fear, anger, good versus evil, light versus dark, standing up for what you believe in, fighting for what you believe in, and who or what you love. It's just so much of these movies are great because of those realistic and relatable elements. And there you have it. That was my finalized version of my all-time favorite movies list. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more. See you guys later. Bye.